Welcome to the Texas High School Football Coaches Show on Lone Star Gridiron. I'm Chris Daly, and it's my belief that the men that make up the fraternity of Texas high school football coaches are much more than a bunch of thick-necked guys with whistles. They do so much more than teach technique and the X's and O's of football. They take young boys and change them into young men of character. They get kids to believe in themselves, to trust others, and to put others ahead of themselves. Texas high school football coaches are unique in how they impact the lives of these athletes as well as the generations those kids touch. In this show, I sit down with a different Texas high school football coach each time and learn about them. Not their record, not their on-field accomplishments, but who they are and what they believe and what it means to be part of the greatest sport in the greatest state. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Lone Star Gridiron Texas High School Football Coaches Show, Season 4, Episode 19. Yes, and today my guest is the winningest coach in Austin Lake Travis history. He has a winning percentage of nearly 90%, but he is so much more than wins and losses. I will introduce you to Coach Hank Carter right after this. Hey, I want to give a big thank you to this season's title sponsor, Mecca Sportswear, where they are all about celebrating achievement. They're honored that so many high schools, colleges, and universities have chosen Mecca's products to represent their institutions. Mecca supplies you with the very best in custom letter jackets, chenille letters, patches, blankets, banners, pins, certificates, and much more to motivate and celebrate achievement in athletics, academics, or the arts. They create high-quality custom awards that will fit your budget. To see why so many great schools around Texas choose Mecca Sportswear, call Sherry Armstrong or Billy Armstrong at 210-651-6592. Mecca Sportswear, the premier suppliers of letter jackets and awards for over 40 years. Hey, I want to introduce you to our newest sponsor. It is 99 Pledges. And if you're looking for a quick and easy way to raise a bunch of money for your sports team, 99 Pledges is the best way for football teams and booster clubs to raise the most money with the least amount of effort. Donors can donate online. Each player gets their own donation page that they can share with their friends and family all over the country, like grandparents in Florida by email, text, Facebook, or any of the social media outlets. By going online with 99 Pledges, it's easy to spread the word about your fundraiser, keep everyone involved and informed. Because of this, 99 Pledges has seen teams raise over $30,000. And teams like the Katy Tigers have exceeded their fundraising goal. That's the best part. Teams keep an average of 95% of what they raise. Players don't have to go door to door or track down donations. They can save all that energy for where it counts, on the gridiron. Check them out at 99pledges.com. They are an excellent organization. You're going to be so glad that your next fundraiser is through these guys. All right, everybody, join me in welcoming Coach Hank Carter from Austin Lake Travis to the show. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing wonderful because I get to sit and talk with Texas high school football coaches.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Normally these shows are about asking you about your teams and what we can expect, but this one's a little different. We talk about you, your history, your beliefs, and kind of just figure out you as a coach.
Okay.
So let's jump back to when you first discovered football. No matter what age you were, when did you first discover this sport?
That would probably be about as early as that I could remember, probably 3 years old or maybe before that. My dad was a coach at a small town in East Texas called Eustace. And my earliest memories were were about wanting to go jump in the back of my dad's truck early in the morning so I could go to work with him and be at practice. And being at a small school, Dad coached everything. But, obviously, in a small Texas town, football is a really big deal. And so a lot of my memories from at an early age were about being at football games or practices or having the players over at our house or what have you. And so, football, but, sports in general obviously played a big part in my development as a kid. And, obviously just I worshiped my dad and wanted to go into the same line of work that he did.
Nice. So, you see a lot of kids growing up. You used to see a lot of kids growing up who would follow in their father's footsteps, regardless of whether they're a plumber or a dock worker or whatever. But these days, it seems like high school football coaching is one of the few areas where you still see that. Yeah,
and I think there's a lot of different reasons for that. I can tell you that just teaching and coaching, it's I think you have to have a passion for it. I think that it's in some ways it's like going into the military or being a firefighter or a first responder, and that I think it is a calling. I think that the people that are in education or teaching coaching are doing it because they have a passion for young people and they have a passion for helping to want to make a difference in kids' lives. And I can tell you that for me, my dad, had he gotten to choose it for me early on, would have probably directed me into something else just because of the time that you have to spend away from your family. But for my life, I wanted to either be a football coach until about 1985, whenever Top Gun came out. For about 3 or 4 years, I wanted to be a jet pilot in the Navy. And then the more I learned about it, I found out you had to go to school for a really long time to do that. And so I switched back to wanting to be a coach. And, I never really wavered from that. And my mother, my dad has passed now, but my mother is still she's a retired teacher that works part-time. And so I think just education and being around young people is something that I was, maybe destined to do. I'm not sure, but I know that's something that I always dreamed about doing and feel fortunate that I've gotten to do that. Nice.
So, tell me about high school and college. Where'd you go to those?
Yeah, I grew up in Eustace, Texas, and once I got to high school, my dad was my middle school coordinator in 7th grade, and the next year he went to be just a straight teacher and a bus driver. Eventually took over as the transportation director because my younger brother and sister were coming up, and he and my mother wanted to be a part of, get a chance to go watch us play, and so. I played everything. I was in the band, played football, basketball, baseball, a little bit of track, UIL academics in a small town. That's one of the things that was really neat. Got a chance to do that. Even showed a couple hogs in FFA, and got a chance to meet Coach Chad Morris, who's now the head coach at University of Arkansas. He came in as our quarterbacks coach my junior year, and I was a quarterback, and developed a relationship with him. I would say that football probably wasn't my favorite sport growing up. It was probably baseball or basketball. Really, probably basketball was my favorite. I was probably the best at baseball. I was a decent football player, but I played it because I love the interaction with my classmates, obviously, and it's just, to me, it's just what you did. It was we just kind of went season to season in that town, and so I ended up going to college. Played basketball at the University of Dallas, small Catholic school there in Irving. Did that for a year. Over that next summer, I went, I had some friends that were playing college baseball. They wanted to go to the Atlanta Braves and was hosting a tryout there in Tyler, and a buddy of mine talked me into going, and I was going to go with him and just kind of be there and help, so he didn't make the trip by himself. He talked me into taking my glove, and I went through, and I got some interest from some colleges. I got a little bit better, financial package offer to go play baseball at Le Tourneau in Longview. I lived with my grandmother for a year and played there at Le Tourneau, and then after a couple of years of playing sports, I realized that I was tired of being broke. I couldn't afford to take a girl on a date, and just didn't really have any time to. I wasn't doing anything great. I wasn't a great college athlete by any means. I was just, I got onto the field or court and got to play, but I wasn't making great grades, and so I decided just to finish up school, and ended up graduating from the University of Texas at Tyler, and that was in May of 1999.
Nice. All right, so if you could, take me stop by stop all the coaching positions up to today.
Yeah, so Coach Morris, again, I would say my dad and Coach Chad Morris have been the two most influential people in my life. Especially the men, obviously my mother, but as far as my career, my dad and Coach Morris. And so Coach Morris and I developed a relationship when I was playing there for him at Eustace, and that continued on and continues to this day. I actually been chatting with him this morning, but he had been the quarterback's coach for me at Eustace, ended up moving up being the head basketball coach, and then took the strange role of being the head basketball coach and the head football coach and the AD at Eustace High School for a number of years. And then eventually he moved on to another school called Elysian Fields. And his second year, last year, Elysian Fields was my first year of coaching. I considered going and joining him there, but I decided to start at my alma mater. And so I coached and taught for a year at Eustace High School. And, fresh out of college, for me, it was really cool. I was getting a chance to coach in my hometown, and it was a little bit awkward though. My sister had just graduated high school, and the May before, and I'm starting off, and so most of the kids have known me by my first name. That was a little awkward. I taught algebra, math with money, and I think U.S. history, and I probably didn't have a clue about any of it. Doing my best just to probably get through the day. I coached football, basketball, and baseball then, and we weren't great, but I had a great year. Built a lot of strong relationships with those kids, and had our head coach at the time, Jeff Brown, really helped get me on the right path. I call and apologize to him all the time about, golly, what a nightmare for the boss to have such a young punk like me working for him. But I did that for a year, and then Coach Morris took the job in Bay City, and I went and joined him in Bay City for 3 years, and that was some great times. I coached football, basketball, and baseball there in Bay City for 3 years. Started out as the freshman coach and was an offensive assistant. Moved up to coach tight ends and assistant O-line. Eventually became the wide receivers coach there, along with my buddy Scott Tyner, who's the superintendent now at Tenaha. So we had some great years. Won a state championship in Bay City. Got beat in the state championship game by Ennis, and then our third year there we got beat by Lamarck, who was a really strong team. From there, Coach Morris took the job at Stephenville. I went on there with him, decided to coach defense once I got to Stephenville. Really, it was a lot of things. Most of it was I thought that'd be an easier opportunity for me to advance and move up. I didn't foresee any chance that Coach Morris was ever not going to be the play caller, and so I thought it was an opportunity to learn a different side of the football. And I had a good friend on the staff that was a defensive coach that was going with us, and so he told me that he'd kind of take me under his wing and show me the ropes. And so I coached defensive ends and at Stephenville High School the first year I was there. We ended up spending 5 years at Stephenville there with Coach Morris. I eventually worked my way up to become the defensive coordinator. We got beat in the semifinals. That's the best we did when I was at Stephenville. And Matthew Stafford there at Highland Park, they beat us in the semis right at the very end of the game. We had a chance to win it, but, they made one more play than us. Mm-hmm. And then in February of 2008, I came with Coach Morris to Lake Travis, and I came here as the defensive coordinator for 2 years. We went back-to-back state championships. It's Chad's first 2 years here, and then he went on to become the offensive coordinator at Tulsa in January of 2010, and I took over as head football coach and athletic coordinator at that point. And then after a couple of years, our athletic director retired, and I also took over that role. And so, we've been doing our thing here at Lake Travis, and hoping to continue doing that for the remainder of my career. We love it here.
Yeah, definitely. And was there a little pressure moving into the Big's chair after following a couple coaches who, obviously continued to win state titles?
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure, and I felt that. I think that, I was excited about that opportunity, though, and I knew that I wasn't going to have to do it by myself. I had a fantastic principal, Kim Brentz, at the time, who's now the deputy superintendent over at Lockhart. Most of the staff had remained intact, so, I was very familiar with the coaching staff. I had some great kids, obviously, and they believed in what we were doing and support from the community and just really everything. So, yeah, I felt a lot of pressure. I think that, I've kind of described this before, but, and I think in my career and even just in my personal life, I've always found a way to kind of be Batman and Robin at the same time throughout my maturation as a coach and even just as a man. And so obviously, I was Coach Morris's right-hand man, grew into that role, and then eventually, I took over for him. And so I think some of that coaching defense for him while he was the head coach and the demands that he put on us, and also, me just having the personal relationship that I did with him, I felt a lot of pressure in that. And so it's a little bit different when you take over as head coach, but I was used to being very demanding of myself and also not wanting to let this community and school down. And that's really what I tried to sell our administration on, is that, we're on a great path and we want to continue on that path. And thankfully they had enough confidence in me to do that. And also, obviously our coaching staff.
Definitely. And y'all have continued the tradition there, which is great. You mentioned Coach Morris as being a big influence in your career. Pull out some of the other coaches and maybe some of the things they taught you along the way.
Yeah, well, there was a gentleman named Mike Barber that I met when I coached at Eustace. He had coached my younger brother, and Coach Barber was kind of at the end of his career, and I credit him with. He told me to get my butt out of Eustace and go with Chad. He said that Chad was always going to be successful, and he was going to a school in Bay City. I didn't know anything about it, and he had basically talked me into going. I was happy in Eustace, and probably still would have been happy in Eustace no matter what. Not only teaching me about being a coach, but I think him pointing me in the right direction, I credit him to that. When I got to Bay City, Coach Robert Reyes is actually a coach that's on the staff with me here at Lake Travis now, but he taught me a lot about what it is to prepare and to watch film with your players and to learn about football. I really didn't know anything about football until, several years of my football coaching career. I thought I did, but, I really didn't. I'd say also, when I got to Stephenville, Coach Randall Edwards, we call him E-Dog. E-Dog had been on the staff there with Coach Browse for a long time, and E-Dog eventually came to Lake Travis with us and was my defensive coordinator throughout the first 2 years of my head coaching tenure here. But he taught me what it's, just to be a worker and, to have a tough mentality and that the kids would feed off of that and just to be a great man. And so, there's been a ton of coaches. Like I said, I've been very fortunate to be influenced by so many great men and women that I've come into contact with. Like Kim Brent's our principal at Lake Travis that offered me the job. My current principal, Gordon Butler. Obviously Dr. Lancaster, our superintendent here, and Holly Morris-Kuntz, my boss, our deputy soup. I've got just such a great network of support here, and I've kind of felt like that throughout my career. So I've been a lucky guy.
Nice. So you've also been at kind of a who's who of great football communities. What's the secret for picking good gigs?
I think that my dad had a lot to do with that. There was a time where I thought about branching off from Chad and going and taking a larger role at a smaller school. And, my dad just, and he stayed at Eustace forever, and he really sacrificed his career so that we could all have a neat place to grow up. And we weren't great athletes, but we were good enough athletes to have a big impact on the sports teams there and always be involved. I think that something that my dad told me was to stay with successful programs and to go into communities where just the community supports the school and not just the football team, but the things that the kids are involved in, whether that's band or cavalettes or cheer, football, volleyball, whatever it is, just to go to communities where the community is really interested in the success of the school itself. And so, I've always taken that to heart.
Definitely. So shifting gears, the trend in recent years has been for student athletes to specialize in their sport. And you mentioned growing up at Eustace, I was at a 2A school, and that's what we all did. We went season by season. You did everything. So talk about that and how that's difficult or different at a big school like Lake Travis.
Well, I think that we do. I'm proud of the job that our coaches do here at Lake Travis, and especially our football coaches. We kind of have a standing rule. We can't make them do it, but I would say 95+% of our kids in the football program play more than one sport. And we believe in that. We push that on them. We're not going to give them a guilt trip because they have to miss the 7-on-7 or a weight workout because they're playing basketball or baseball or what have you. I think that most of the specialization is because parents are fearful that they're not putting their kids in the best situation to be successful. And so it's a little bit of fear. And it's fear of the unknown. It's fear that somebody else is practicing when they're not. And they just don't have, most people are just not sports people, and they don't understand that what's most important is the fact that a kid, he or she, is competing. And I think it's actually more important to play more than one sport. I think that in the long run, The kids that are highly successful for a long period of time have been exposed to different coaches, different athletic groups, different peer groups, different body part movements, different exercises. And I think that if you're watching the NFL or if you're watching, big time athletic activities on television or what have you, you're going to see that a lot of times the guys and gals that are excelling at the next level have kind of excelled at whatever they did, and most of them did more than one thing. I try very hard to educate our parents here at Lake Travis that instead of putting all their eggs in one basket, they'd be better served letting their kids participate in as many things that they feel like add value to the kid's self-image. And so we get too wrapped up in, well, he or she doesn't have a future in softball or soccer, or he doesn't have a future in baseball. The truth is almost none of them have a future in any of the sports. And so if we went about it with that mindset, they wouldn't play anything. They'd all go and we'd study banking and we'd study, it shouldn't be about that. The kids that go on and play major college sports and play professional sports, number one, they have some God-given ability, most of them, that, there's not anything that, because of their stature and the length of their arms and then, and their ability, that obviously they develop those skills over time. But, for the most part, just because somebody's playing baseball year-round or football year-round doesn't give them an advantage in that sport. And I think over time it kind of douses their passion and their energy to go out and do it. I know that for me as a kid, I couldn't have done it. I loved going season to season. I got to hang out. I got to hear a different message from a different coach. I got to play a different position. I got to do different exercises. And, again, we're trying very hard to try to educate our parents and put their minds at ease. If their kid is talented enough, he or she is going to get the accolades or the spot or whatever is coming to them. But in the long run, if you focus on one thing, if you focus on playing quarterback and that's it, and a better quarterback moves in your grade, you're kind of left with nothing. And, like the same thing could be with a setter, or same thing could be with the first baseman or the goalkeeper or what have you. And so we preach to, if their kids enjoy doing more than one thing, let's keep them doing that as long as they can.
Yeah, and it's definitely healthier too to work out different muscles.
It is, and it's like preaching to the choir sometimes. But you're not meant to throw a baseball. Major League Baseball pitchers don't pitch year round, and quarterbacks don't play football year round. And there is some sacrifice. There is a toll, especially on shoulders and elbows and things like that. But so we'll see. We're going to continue to try to get the information out there and let them know that the key is just for the kids to be competing and learning to interact with different groups. And again, most of them don't have a future in any of this stuff. This is just something to help along with their maturation process. Sure.
In sticking with kids, a lot of the coaches I talk to in less prosperous communities, they deal with a lot of issues like being a father figure because there's so many single parents in the community.
Sure.
What are the issues that you run into, or are they the same issues because you're in a
they're the same issues. I mean, we've got a lot of great families here, but we also have a lot of kids that just have a mom or a dad at home or have neither, so Lake Travis, although I think is seen as an affluent area, I do think that we have a lot of different. We're the real world. We're not in a bubble here, and there are some bubble aspects to it. But once you get to know the kids and the families, you understand that driving a nice car doesn't shield you from family drama or from broken homes or just family relationship issues. And so I can tell you that where I felt like we had the least impact, or it took the longest to have an impact, was in Stephenville, because it was it's a lower middle class community. There were a lot of two-parent households, and there wasn't a lot of change in that community. So it was harder for us to get in and see where we could really make a difference for the kids. We did over time, but it was slower. In Lake Travis, we've got a lot of great parents, but a lot of times, even in a two-parent household, dad travels a lot, and so even though it's not a single parent, in a lot of ways, we are the father figures, and our coaches are the mother figures and things like that, because just different dynamics. We've got a lot of dads that work out of town, out of state, and come here on the weekends only. And so, everybody has different issues. Ours are, obviously, ours are different than some places. But at the end of the day, you're still dealing with young people and families, and there are things going on behind the scenes at every school and every program that are a challenge. And hopefully our coaches are providing some structure and some support, because every kid needs different things, and hopefully we can be that for all of them.
Definitely. A lot of the coaches I talk with, when I ask them about their favorite things about the sport or memorable moments, it's about some effect they had on a kid that is now grown up, married, have kids or something like that. Do you have any stories like that of seeing long-term effects of what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you this year when we played our semifinal game against North Shore, we played at NRG Stadium in Houston, and 4 or 5 of my former players from McAllister Junior High in Bay City came to the game, and those guys are now grown men, and many of them with families were 7th and 8th graders back then, and it was, I've told them all, and one thing is, young men and women mature at different rates, but almost without question, the kids that I've had an opportunity to coach either come back here or reach out to me and let me know the impact that we've had on them, and that makes you feel good. And I also let them know the impact they've had on me. I mean, some of the greatest relationships that I've developed have been with some of my former players, and I'm talking to former players this morning. Gary Gilbert playing, finished the season there with the Carolina Panthers, was playing in this new professional football league, and talking to him about that. And just, those are some of the neatest things, just knowing that you made a difference in them. And you don't always realize it, especially as a young coach, you don't realize the impact that you're having on them, but you never know. And, but yeah, that's obviously it's rewarding. When you see your kids go on to either play at the next level or just to be dads or husbands or whatever it is, just knowing that you made an impact on them and in some way help them develop that's rewarding. At the end of the day, that's why we all got into this business. It wasn't for the championships and things like that. Like I said, I started out at Eustace during that year. We got beat 70-6 in a varsity football game. We got beat 38-0 in a baseball game, and I was having the time of my life because I was getting to coach and teach and be around young people in sports. And so, there's obviously, some people could say coaches don't work a day in their lives because we're getting to do what we enjoy. And and I don't ever wake up in the morning and not want to come to work. And I feel like that's a pretty awesome thing that I'm getting to do. Yeah,
no doubt. You mentioned why you get in this business. If you're at coaching school and a brand new, fresh-faced young coach just out of college comes up to you and asks for advice, what do you tell him?
I'm going to tell him to ask a lot of questions. I'm going to tell him to every supervisor that he has, he or she needs to figure out what they can do to enhance their career, meaning pay attention to what they're telling them, pay attention and make sure that they're learning along the way, because all the people that you come in contact with, you can, every boss that I've ever had, I've gotten something from them that has helped me in my career. And so I would tell them that. I would tell them to be humble. I would tell them to be patient and just to study. And at the end of the day, make sure that they have a heart for kids. And if they do those things, typically it'll work out for them.
Excellent. Coach Hank Carter, I want to thank you so much for sitting down with me and sharing some of your story.
My pleasure.
This show is brought to you by the book, All I Need to Know I Learned from My Texas High School Football Coach, a handbook of wisdom for parents, young people, and yes, even coaches. Head over to www.learnedfromcoach.com and order your copy to support sharing the stories of these great coaches and leaders. That's learnedfromcoach.com.
Hey, once again, I want to thank Coach Hank Carter for sitting down, sharing a little bit of his philosophy and his story with us, and remind you guys to please go out and support these sponsors. They are the reason, they are the way we get these messages to you. Until next time, I'm Chris Daly. We'll see you at the game.